So it's been 2 days, and people already reviewing and talking about episode three, which some did get an early screening of, thanks to Disney and Disney Plus. And apparently, the embargo on episode three ended. Never mind. Sorry about that. But anyway, like I said, a lot of people have been talking in the past 2 days about episode three because apparently today the embargo ended and people spoiled it a little bit. And pretty much what I figured was going to be the case is going to be the case, except it happened a little differently than I think any of us could have imagined. And it was resolved a lot quicker than some of us could have imagined as well. They do mention that episode three is going to be, kind of like very horror themed when the revelation gets made. Basically it's going to be mind games and tricks and everything. Like we get a fusion of Magneto and Rogue because they're working around on, they're taking elements from that story arc in the comics and everything. So there's like a scene where, they're dealing with this mind game horror, whatever it is from the clone, the Goblin Queen gene, if you will, the one that basically had the baby with Scott, Cyclops. And there's a scene basically where Gambit walks into the room and into, I think, the office, and he sees Rogue fusing with Magneto, literally fused to him into one or something like that. Almost into one. I don't know what it's going to look like. Nobody's put images up. Honestly, I think they're waiting until a certain time frame. But nobody's put images up. But apparently he walks in and there's this fusion, literally, of them. And you're thinking, well, what did the Goblin Queen do? Did she use her magic to powers to fuse them and everything? No, the dialogue that gets used and everything from Rogue and all that, Magneto, is mostly mind tricks. It's mind games on Gambit, apparently. Because that's what they do. That's the thing with these characters with psychic powers and telekinetic powers and everything, that they can play mind tricks. They can play mind games. Let's not forget in part 2 of the Phoenix Saga, you had the dark side of Charles Xavier get loose, and he was playing mind tricks with the X-Men like Wolverine and Gambit and all them. So so that's basically what you get here, from what I understood. From what I understood, that's what you get here. But it gets resolved very quickly. It does follow the method. It does follow the method of the comic that it's basing itself off of. But there's changes. There are changes. Basically, the gene that we got, that we were with from the beginning, who turns out to be the clone, she's under basically Sinister's control. He has this like some kind of necklace or something on her that gets broken because she goes into like a astral plane, like telepathic psychic battle with Jean and all variants of Jean, and they're able to, along with Jean, break control that Sinister has on the Goblin Queen, on the clone gene, if you will, and basically the clone gene after having Sinister's control removed from her, snaps out of it, sees what she's become, and apparently along with Cyclops and I think Jean, I don't know if Jean gets there or whatever, but mostly Cyclops takes Sinister down. They take Sinister down, but the damage is already done. Already in the process of happening, because the baby gets abducted, which is going to be Cable. And yeah, it gets to the point that Bishop, now that his time-traveling device, his time-traveling wrist, if you will, wristband, I should say, is fixed by Beast, can go back into the future and basically take Cable back with him to get the treatment, or take the baby with him to get the treatment he needs to survive and become Cable eventually. And that's what happens, apparently, based on what people like Angry Joe Vargas said, because he's one of those people, Other Joe, and Alex, they got a screener of the third episode, so they were able to see exactly what happens next and everything. And and what happens is the clone, who is free of Sinister's control for right now, basically leaves the X-Men. She basically goes off and decides to, do her own thing. She's going to start, kind of create her own path. We don't know if maybe she's going to cut her hair to make it look like, what it did when she got first introduced, to distinguish the difference between her and Jean. But she does go by the name at the end of Madeline Pryor. Angry Joe, couldn't figure that out at first, couldn't remember, even though he typed it up in his notes. But yeah, it's Madeline Pryor she's going to go by. And we'll see if she plays a role later on, if she keeps in contact with them and stuff. Because one of the things that I think it was Marvelous Videos, I think. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if it was Marvelous Videos. Let me see. I'm going to go to my history here to see if I'm right about that. Hold on. I think, yeah, it was Marvelous Videos. About 3 hours ago, they put up a video talking about what we could potentially see with Jean and everything. And they did state in there that Madeline Pryor at one point is part of the X-Men. Or she stays in contact with them. So I think that's the path they're going down with this Madeline Pryor. Like, she's going to keep in contact with them and let them know what's going on and everything. And because she was created by Sinister, and that's the one thing they don't answer apparently is at first. I mean, I'm sure we'll get some answers down the line before the season's out, but that's the one question people are going to wonder. It's like, okay, how and when did Sinister create her? How and when did he make her, make her from genes? Like, how did this happen? And there's a lot of scenarios. There's the first time they get captured, both her and Scott, and a Sinister extracts what I would assume is like a blood clot thing, from them. Because remember, he put these things with teeth next to their neck and he's extracted something from them. So I'm wondering if that played a key. We don't know if he did it the second time he got his hands on Jean. We don't know if it's when he threw her into that portal at the beginning, in the first part of Beyond Good and Evil. And instead of going straight to the axis of time, where Apocalypse was, she ended up basically, in his lair. And he took the opportunity to clone her and then put the clone in the place of Jean. We don't know. Again, how could Apocalypse not know that? It's not really Jean. I mean, he's that kind of a character. We don't know. So hopefully we'll get some answers down the line and everything. But I can tell you this. We know we're going to get Sinister later on in the series. And you want to talk about, a final battle, like a final confrontation-like setting that's being set up as we speak. Between the leader, like the leader of the heroes and the main villain. You got that set up right here, because we've seen Cyclops, attack and fight, or try to attack and get rid of Sinister before. This right here is going to make him want to definitely kick Sinister's ass all over the place. We can already see that. But I told you guys that they were going to take elements from certain storylines and make them into their own. And apparently they took the storyline of the Goblin Queen and Madeline Pryor kind of clone situation and make it into something that is loosely adapted from the original story, but it's also its own thing, with her going off and doing her own deal and maybe staying in contact with the X-Men following that portion of the comics. And and you're looking at the picture and you're wondering, okay, why do you got Sonic and the Freedom Fighters up there? It's because Archie Sonic is very, I wouldn't say identical, but similar in tone to X-Men 97. Because X-Men 97, and to an extent, the original X-Men animated series, the reason people liked it, just like they liked Archie Sonic, is because it's a mishmash of different elements from the franchise. That's what it is. It is a mishmash of different elements from all over. With Archie Sonic, it is a mishmash of, adventures at first, and still somewhat later on. It is a mishmash of adventures. It is a mishmash of satire, and we start seeing that later on when they start doing the Princess Sally solo stories, which lead into the in-your-face 48-page special they did, and that leads into the Princess Sally 3-part miniseries comic. You know, it's a mishmash of adventures, satire, the games, if you will, the video games, and, you know, it's even a mishmash of even, you know, the Fleetway comics. You know, so it's a mishmash of a lot of stuff. It's a mishmash of a lot of stuff, and even a mishmash of elements from different, you know, Sonic IPs, like, for example, Underground, and, you know, even X and Boom. Even though they were treated as their own separate entities, there are elements, if you will, that are mixed in there into Archie Sonic that made it what it is, and that's why fans liked it. Even through the soft retcon and soft reboot, if you will, people still liked it because it was a mishmash of all the different elements of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And the mishmash mixed together into something that people enjoyed because there was almost at every turn in every issue, there was a reasoning for incorporating certain elements from the games, from Satayam, from Adventures, from Underground, from Boom, from X, you name it. There was always, you know, a reason for those elements to be, you know, incorporated. And what makes it similar in tone to that with X-Men 97 and to an extent the original X-Men animated series that ran for 5 years, or 5 seasons, is X-Men 97, and to an extent the show it's continuing off of, you know, is a mishmash of all X-Men elements, all X-Men stories and franchises. That's what they are, or that's what it is. It is a it is a mishmash, easy for me to say, mishmash of all those different elements, you know, from different storylines of the X-Men franchise. You know, you got, again, what we're going on right here in the first 3 episodes, the Madeline Pryor clone Jean thing. It's a mishmash of that. It's a loose adaptation of that, but it's all mixed. It's all of a mishmash together to be its own thing, and we see that. We see that. You know, it's even a mishmash. You know, of like for example, Life and Death, the story where Storm losing her powers. We're already getting somewhat an answer to that. It's all mixed together. It's all being mixed and mishmashed and mixed together into a perfect ingredient. You know, Magneto going good in everything, you know, which is its own separate story arc. The love triangle between, you know, Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit. It's all being mixed. It's all being mishmashed together with all these other different story elements. And that's what makes it attractive to a lot of fans, because you're not just saying, okay, this season we're only going to focus on the Madeline Pryor stuff and that's it. No, you are mixing together, incorporating it all together into a nice little, you know, flavorful chocolate fondue dessert that everybody enjoys by incorporating and mishmashing all these different ideas and elements and making it into your own, just like Archie Sonic did. And that's why, you know, that's why fans like both of these kind of presentations, because it's not just, you know, it's not just focusing on one continuity, you know, and that's it, and not incorporating anything else, or it's not settling on like, you know, one season being all about this storyline and that's it. No, they are mixing together a lot of elements. I mean, yes, they are going to adapt. They are going to adapt certain story arcs, I should say, you know, to a T. I wouldn't say to a T, but almost to a T, you know, from the comics. They're going to do that in the future. We already know that. You mean Life and Death might be one of the more incorporated ones that they do, that's straight lifted from the comics, if you will. But again, you're getting this mishmash of story elements that people, when they look at this, they're like, oh shoot, this is good, because you're not just getting, you know, the Magneto trying to redeem himself, going on trial, and, you know, story elements, you know, adapted from that comic story incorporated here, but at the same time you're getting story elements of the romance, the love triangle, the past, if you will, romantically, between Rogue and Magneto, and you're incorporating Gambit into that, along with that story arc, and at the same time, you're incorporating Storm's situation, and you've also incorporated the Madeline Pryor situation, and it's being mishmashed together perfectly. Because now you're not just wondering, okay, what's going to happen with Storm, but now you're looking at this thinking, oh, what's going to happen here? With Madeline Pryor, Jean, and Cyclops, it's like you can't ask for anything more. And I know some people would rather have something be, focused on one thing and that's it. I get that. But if you can incorporate and mix together, blend together perfectly, and I mean perfectly, different story elements, loosely adapt those story elements, and interweave them together to make something good, then I think you're going to have a recipe for, victory. You're going to have a recipe for success. And for 292 issues, if you will, on 290 issues before it was canceled, that's what the Archie Sonic comic was. It was a mishmash of interweaving different elements and such from all the different franchises of Sonic into this comic with, through its ups and downs. And that's why a lot of fans loved it, because it wasn't just focusing on one different version of Sonic and that's it. No, it was focusing on it being an amalgamation of everything Sonic. Just like X-Men 97, and to an extent the original animated series on Fox did. It became an amalgamation. So you weren't just settled on one story arc. Now all of a sudden you had other story arcs to wonder about, as well. I mean, even when they adapted the Phoenix arc and the Dark Phoenix arc, guess what? You had little elements in there from different, adaptations as well. Or different story elements as well. And it worked. It worked out perfectly from what I can remember and from what I'm hearing about, from what I've seen and heard, I should say, when it comes to this. It's worked out perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. And I don't think anybody, hold on while I get some water. I don't think anybody could ask for anything else. And this is what a lot of shows need to do. Whether they're adapting from something or whatever, mostly adapting, this is what they should do. If they know whatever they're adapting has different, interpretations out there, different elements out there based on it, then you should basically should take your show and make it into a mishmash of all of those elements. Make it into a mishmash of all those elements, interweave them, and you might be surprised about what you get. You might be surprised. I mean, why do you think the IDW TMNT series, before it's going into its, kind of soft reboot or whatever it's going to be, was a success? Because for a while, it may have been, kind of a straight, retelling of the Mirage run, but sooner or later, it started to become a mishmash of different elements of TMNT. And that's what made it popular. That's what people, that's why people, I should say, got behind it, and everything. It's because, these people, that were reading the comic, I'm trying to find the right words to say here, that were reading the comic, were fans of all these different interpretations of TMNT. The same way with Sonic, the same way with X-Men. They loved all the different versions. They supported all the different versions of, these characters, of these franchises. And that's what made these adaptations, these takes on them, successful. And that's why, like I said, if you're going to adapt something that has multiple, and I mean multiple, adaptations, elements, takes on them, if you're going to do a new series, you're going to do an animated series, CGI or 2D or whatever, you need to incorporate every single interpretation, every single element, every single story arc, if you will. You need to do that and interweave it together. And again, like I said, you'll be surprised about what, you get in return as far as like a fan reaction goes, because a lot of fans, believe it or not, I know some will deny it, but a majority of fans will appreciate what you've done, because you're basically taking a show based on something they like that they know has different interpretations, and you're saying, we're bringing it all together, mishmashing it into one, element, and we're going to go from there, one amalgamation, and go from there. and you'll find out by doing so, fans will appreciate it. That's why fans were excited about 97 coming, because they remembered that the original series, like I said, yes, it had its adaptations here and there, no doubt. But they remember that original series at most times could also be a mishmash of different story elements. That's what they remember. And that's why they were excited for 97, because they knew it would carry that on, if not, more, I guess you could say, mature in tone, because that's what the series is actually, for, or that's what the series, or that's who I should say, this series is actually for the, the fans that grew up on the original. They knew with this series becoming, being a continuation, being a little bit more mature in tone, that, basically they knew they were going to get that same treatment, but if not better. And they're starting to see the fruits of that. They're starting to see the fruits of that labor that labor and love that was put into it, of that mishmashing coming to be. Because you're seeing it here, you're seeing it there, and that's just in the first 2 to 3 episodes. And again, I know they're not identical, but very similar in tone. This is why, as I mentioned, people liked Sonic, Archie Sonic, because it was a mishmash of adventures, Satayam, the games, other interpretations of Sonic like Fleetway, Underground, X, and Boom. And even though those were their own separate things, the main comic had mishmashing of them all. And that's why fans loved it. And nobody can deny that. Nobody can deny that whatsoever. So if you're wondering why people were excited about X-Men 97 happening and everything, it is because, just like with Archie Sonic, and it's the same reason for them, it's because fans knew and remembered from the original run, even though it wasn't, as much, even though it wasn't utilized as much, it was utilized, but not as much. Basically, not as much. The reason fans liked it then, along with its adaptations of story arcs like Dark Phoenix, the Flalix, or whatever it's called, or the Parallax, if you will, the Parallax, the Dark Phoenix, you name it, or Days of Future Past, or whatever you want to call it, or Out of the Past, whatever you want to call it. The reason people liked it is, outside of those adaptions or loose adaptions, it was a mishmash of different story elements and arcs put together, combined together, hybrid, amalgamated together into something that worked, to something that made sense. And that's why they were excited about 97, because they knew, as I mentioned, not only would it continue that trend, because you had the original VA cast coming back, you had the some of the original writers coming back along with the new writers. You knew you were going to get a mishmash of story elements, and that's what you got on a more mature level. Because like I said, this show is meant for more so for the fans that grew up on the original, and it's definitely lived up to that hyped expectation. But again, that's why they liked it. That's why they appreciate it. Even now, that's why they're giving it rave reviews, because it is a mishmash of different story elements and different interpretations of the X-Men. In different, like I said, different franchises of them, if you will, from different comics and all that. And like I said, the same goes for Archie Sonic. Again, not identical, but similar in that vein, because people saw that mishmashing of adventures, Satayam, Underground, X, Boom, the games, Fleetway, you name it. They liked all that being mishmashed and interwoven together to make something grandioso, even through its ups and downs. So that's why basically people are happy about X-Men 97, why they're loving it, and why people want to see things like Archie Sonic make a return in some capacity, because they know that these are the kind of stories, these are the kind of franchises, these are the kind of interpretations, if you will, that are perfect, examples of when you mishmash different elements of a franchise together from different interpretations, you get beautiful music. You get beautiful music and magic all in one. That's what you get. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to bring that up, talk about that. Let me know if you agree or not. Love to hear your takes on it. And until then, Take care. God bless. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. It's because both are a mishmash of all different interpretations. But again, give me your thoughts. Let me know if you agree. And until then, I am out.